The wind worried the plastic banners above Pump 6, snapping them like flags that had forgotten what they stood for. The gas station sat where the city's bright spine thinned into industrial ribs. Warehouses, chain link, a railroad overpass that shook every hour as freight trains dragged their long metal sentences across town. Late afternoon light glazed everything the color of old coins. A black man stood near the air pump, hunched in a coat too thin for January. His beard was mostly gray, his hands bare and cracked, his shoulders carrying that particular stillness people wore when they tried not to take up space. He stared at the convenience store doors as if they might open and swallow him whole. His shopping cart was a quiet monument, blankets folded tight, a backpack, a gallon jug, a small paper bag tucked down between cardboard and plastic. On top sat a battered radio that didn't look like it had spoken in years. A young woman in a blue sedan eased into the station, frowned at the out-of-order sign on Pump 4, then rolled her eyes and swung around toward Pump 2. The man stepped back, giving her a wide berth without being asked. He kept his gaze down. At the edge of the lot, 2 patrol cars slid in like chess pieces moved with confidence. The first stopped by the curb, the second angled toward the pumps, blocking the lane out. The sound of tires on grit made a short, sharp warning. A clerk inside the store looked up from behind the bulletproof glass and sighed, the way someone did when they already knew the ending. Officer Brent McCauley got out first. He was broad, mid-30s, jawline like a punch. His partner, Officer Danny Ruiz, followed, slimmer and younger, hand in his pockets despite the cold. Their body cameras blinked red. The lights atop the cars stayed off, but the presence of them was loud anyway. McCauley's gaze locked immediately on the man with the cart. "Well, look at that," McCauley said, voice carrying like he meant it to. "We got ourselves a situation." The man didn't move. His shoulders rose and fell with one slow breath. Ruiz glanced at the pumps, then the store, then back. Dispatch said there was a disturbance. McCauley's eyes never left the man. Disturbance is right there. People complaining, loitering, panhandling. The man looked up then, not startled, not defiant, just present. His eyes were dark and tired, but sharp in a way that didn't match his clothes. He held McCauley's gaze long enough to show he'd heard every word, then glanced away to the concrete at their boots. McCauley approached like he was closing distance on a threat. "Hey, sir, you can't be here. I'm not bothering anybody," the man said quietly. McCauley stopped a few feet away, as if that was the safe perimeter. "You're loitering. This is private property." The man's voice stayed even. "I'm waiting for the bus." "There's no bus stop here." The man nodded once, patient. "There's one across the street." McCauley snorted. "Then go across the street." The man moved his cart a few inches, the wheels squeaking in surrender. "I can go." Ruiz watched him, expression caught between sympathy and procedure. "You got an ID on you?" The man's hand drifted toward his coat pocket and paused. McCauley's stance tightened. "Don't reach." The man froze. "I was going to show you." McCauley put a hand on his belt. "Keep your hands where I can see them." The man lifted both palms, empty, as if holding air. "Okay." A small line formed at the register inside. A teenager with a backpack stared through the window. The woman at Pump 2 kept glancing over her shoulder, phone out, pretending she was texting but aiming the camera. The man lowered his hands slowly. "I don't have to be at the bus stop to wait for the bus." McCauley stepped closer. "You arguing with me? You want to spend the night in a warm cell?" The man's jaw flexed, and for a split second something like anger rose, then settled back into restraint. "No." Ruiz cleared his throat. "Brent, maybe just—" McCauley cut him off with a hand motion. "We've had issues here. Calls about harassment, people feeling unsafe." He looked the man up and down with open disdain. "This is a family place." "A family place," the man repeated silently in his head, looking at the beer posters and the lottery signs and the cracked lot with oil stains. He said out loud, "I haven't asked anyone for anything." McCauley's voice sharpened. "You match the description." "Of who?" "Of the guy causing problems." The man's eyes lifted again. "What problems?" McCauley leaned in. "Don't play games. You people always." Ruiz's head snapped toward him. His mouth opened, then closed. He shifted his weight like his conscience had stepped on his foot. The man held very still. A long moment hung there, heavy as the overpass above. Behind the clerk's glass, the manager, short, nervous with a tie too tight, picked up the phone, hesitated, then set it down again. Calling might help. Calling might make it worse. He watched Macaulay's hands, watched the man's cart, watched the air between them. Macaulay pointed toward the street. Move along. The man began to push his cart. The wheels caught on a crack and jolted. The paper bag tucked between the blankets shifted, slid, and dropped. It hit the concrete with a soft thud, and something inside clinked. Macaulay's posture changed instantly. What's that? He barked. The man stopped. Just a bag. Macaulay stepped around the cart, boots close to the bag. What's in it? The man swallowed. Personal things. Macaulay crouched, reached. Don't, the man said, not loud but firm. Macaulay's eyes snapped up. Excuse me. That's mine. Macaulay stood up, bag in hand now, swinging it slightly like it weighed nothing. You don't get to tell me what to do. Ruiz moved closer. Brent, if we're searching property we need. Macaulay shook the bag. It clinked again, metal on metal. His mouth curled. What, you got weapons? You got drugs? The man's face tightened, but he kept his voice low. Put it down. Macaulay laughed once, sharp. Or what? The wind punched through again, fluttering a receipt at their feet like a white flag. The man looked at Ruiz, then back at Macaulay. He didn't raise his voice, but it carried in a different way now, controlled, certain. Officer, I'm asking you to put my property down. Macaulay's eyes narrowed, tasting that tone. You got a lot of nerve for someone who sleeps in a cart. The woman at pump 2 stopped pretending to text. Her phone was up now, openly recording. Ruiz's voice softened. Sir, do you have ID? If you show us ID, we can just... The man nodded once. Yes. Macaulay's hand flew up. No reaching. The man's eyes flicked to the bag in Macaulay's grip. My ID is in my coat pocket. Macaulay moved closer, invading. I'll get it. Ruiz's face tightened. Brent. Macaulay ignored him, stepping behind the cart, angling like he was going to search the man himself. Hands behind your back. The man didn't move. Hands behind your back now. In that moment, everything narrowed to the space between command and compliance. The split second where people got hurt because one person thought fear was authority and the other person knew fear too well. The man looked down, then slowly turned his wrists outward and placed his hands on the cart handle. Calm, deliberate, visible. I'm not resisting, he said. I'm not a threat. I'm waiting for the bus. Macaulay grabbed his arm anyway, yanking it off the cart. The man winced, not from surprise, but from old joints that had already taken their share. His other hand lifted reflexively, not to strike, just to balance. Macaulay barked, stop reaching. Ruiz's hand hovered near his own holster, not drawing, just ready. His eyes moved fast, hands, shoulders back, faces, body cameras blinking. The manager inside whispered, oh no, like prayer and warning at once. Brent, relax, Ruiz said, voice urgent now. We can de-escalate. Macaulay tightened his grip and shoved the man toward the cart. You want to make a scene? You wanna... The man's patience snapped, not into violence, but into clarity. Enough, he said. It wasn't a shout. It was a verdict. Macaulay blinked as if he'd been slapped by a word. The man's eyes were suddenly not tired at all. They were the eyes of someone who had sat in rooms with men who bought and sold ruin. Someone who had watched lies crumble under steady pressure. His voice stayed low. You're on camera, he said. Both of you. Macaulay scoffed. So are you. The man nodded. Good. He met Ruiz's gaze. Officer Ruiz, you're going to want to remember what happens next. Ruiz stared back, confusion and something else, recognition, maybe flickering across his features. Huh. Why do you know my name? Macaulay jerked the man's arm again. He read your tag, Danny. Don't be stupid. But Ruiz's tag was partly tucked behind his jacket, and the man hadn't looked at it. The man took a careful breath. Officer Macaulay, he said, pronouncing it perfectly. Macaulay froze for the briefest moment. What did you say? Your name. Macaulay. Ruiz's eyes widened. Macaulay's face reddened. You stalking me? The man's mouth twitched. Not a smile, something like sadness. No. He looked at the bag again, still in Macaulay's hand. Put it down. Macaulay shook it once more, defiant. Make me. The man's gaze went to the body camera on Macaulay's chest. Red light blinking. Fine, the man said. He reached, slowly, into the inner pocket of his coat. Ruiz's hand came up, palm out. Sir, wait. The man stopped with 2 fingers in the pocket. I'm retrieving identification. Macaulay's voice jumped. Don't. The man withdrew a worn, folded piece of leather. He held it out, arms extended, like an offering at an altar he didn't respect. Macaulay snatched it and flipped it open. His expression shifted in stages, annoyance, then confusion, then something sharper. He stared at the seal. He looked at the photo, then at the man, then back. Ruiz leaned in to see. His face drained of color. Macaulay's laugh came out wrong. This is fake. The man said nothing. He just watched. Macaulay flipped it again, scanning the text. His lips moved as he read, trying to find the trick. His eyes snagged on a number. Ruiz swallowed hard. Brent. Macaulay shoved the ID toward Ruiz like it was burning him. Tell him this is fake. Ruiz took it, looked, and his whole posture changed. The casual slouch vanished. His shoulders squared, his hands steadied. He stared at the name, the badge number, the division. His voice came out quieter. It's not fake. Macaulay's eyes went wide, then narrowed with anger that suddenly had nowhere safe to go. He's homeless. The man's voice stayed even. I'm undercover. Macaulay barked a laugh again. Undercover? As what, He cut himself off, because the word he wanted to use would be forever, and there were cameras. Ruiz handed the ID back with both hands, like returning a weapon to a superior. Sir, he said, and the title sounded strange in his mouth now. Agent. The man took it, tucked it away. Macaulay's face tightened, trying to reassemble authority out of pride and panic. You can't just, you should have said. The man tilted his head slightly. You didn't ask who I was. You decided what I was. Macaulay opened his mouth, shut it, opened it again. This is entrapment or something. The man's eyes held his. No, it's a test. Macaulay's gaze flicked to the woman recording at the pump, then to the clerk inside, then to Ruiz, whose expression had shifted into something like dread. Ruiz cleared his throat. Sir, do you want us to... The man lifted a hand, stopping him. Don't touch anything. Don't speak to anyone. Don't clean up for me. He looked at Macaulay. Hand me my bag. Macaulay stared at the paper bag like it had suddenly become evidence against him, which it had. He set it down on the cart with forced care, like he was placing a fragile object and not admitting he'd been wrong. The man nodded once, as if recording the gesture. Thank you. Macaulay's jaw clenched. If you're FBI, what are you doing here? The man glanced toward the overpass, as if the answer lived under it. Working. Macaulay's voice dropped. Working on what? The man's eyes slid back to him. Corruption, he said simply, in the way it hides behind routine. Ruiz's throat bobbed. Are we part of that? The man's gaze softened slightly toward Ruiz. That depends on what you do after today. Macaulay's pride flared. This is ridiculous. We responded to a call. We did our job. The man nodded once. You responded. That's true. But what you did once you arrived, he let the sentence hang, unfinished, because the rest of it had already been said by their hands, their voices, their assumptions. The manager inside finally stepped out, wiping his palms on his tie. Officers, he called tentatively. Everything okay? Macaulay spun, grateful for a target. Go back inside. The manager froze, then retreated like a turtle. The man watched him go, then turned back to the officers. I'm going to make a phone call. Macaulay's voice came out sharper than he meant. To who? The man's mouth twitched again. To my supervisor. And to Internal Affairs. And to the U.S. Attorney's Office, depending. Ruiz's face tightened. Macaulay scoffed, but the sound was thin. You can't. The man cut him off with a look. Not anger. Not vengeance. Just a steady gaze that said, You're not the biggest thing in this moment anymore. I can, he said. He stepped away from the cart, pulling a prepaid phone from a hidden pocket sewn into the lining of his coat, stitched by someone who knew how to hide things in plain sight. He dialed from memory. Ruiz watched his fingers, then glanced at Macaulay as if to say, We are in deep water now. Macaulay's eyes darted around, searching for an exit that wasn't blocked by the very car he'd angled across it. The man held the phone to his ear. "It's me," he said when the call connected. "I need you to send the team." "Yes. Now." A pause. "No, I'm safe." The contact didn't show. "But we have an incident. 2 officers. Body cam footage. A civilian recording as well." Ruiz flinched at the phrase, civilian recording. The man continued, voice calm. "Yes, I have names. I'll give you everything." Another pause. "Also, give me a supervisor from the precinct. And someone from the station owner's office, if we can identify them. I want the chain." Macaulay's face hardened, defensive. "This is overkill." The man lowered the phone slightly, eyes never leaving him. "It's documentation." He spoke into the phone again. "And I need a medical unit on standby." A pause. "No injuries, but the man they thought I was might show up. If he does, we need him alive." He ended the call and slid the phone back into his coat. The air felt different, charged, like the station had become a stage and the script had been rewritten mid-scene. Ruiz exhaled slowly. "Agent, I didn't know." The man studied Ruiz for a long moment. Then he asked, "What did you see when you pulled in?" Ruiz blinked. "I saw a man with a cart." The man nodded. And then Ruiz swallowed. "I saw Officer Macaulay focus on him." "And what did you think?" Ruiz's eyes dropped. "I thought it would be routine." The man nodded again, not condemning, just noting. Routine is where harm becomes invisible. Macaulay's voice rose, trying to reclaim volume as power. "Okay, this is some kind of lecture now? You trying to shame us?" The man turned to him. "I'm trying to measure you." Macaulay's nostrils flared. "Measure me for what?" The man's gaze was steady. "For whether you belong in a uniform." Macaulay's hand curled into a fist. "You don't get to decide that." The man's eyes didn't change. "I don't decide alone." A siren wailed somewhere distant. Not theirs, not yet, but it threaded through the cold like a reminder. The woman at pump 2 hovered, phone still raised. She looked from the man to the officers, eyes bright with the adrenaline of witnessing something she'd expected only on screens. The man turned his head slightly toward her. "Ma'am," he called gently. She flinched, then lowered the phone a little. "Yes." He nodded once. "You have every right to record. Please keep recording." Her eyes widened. "Oh, okay." She lifted it again, steadier. Macaulay glared at her. "Put the phone away." The man's voice sharpened by 1 degree. "Don't." Ruiz shifted, uneasy. "Brent, leave her." Macaulay's eyes flashed. "You taking a side now?" Ruiz's jaw tightened. "I'm taking the side of not making this worse." Macaulay snapped. "It's already worse." The man watched that exchange with quiet interest, like a scientist watching a reaction he'd predicted. In his mind, he replayed the last 3 months, sleeping under bridges, learning the names of the men who controlled corners, earning trust by sharing cigarettes and silence. He'd listened to stories from people the city called problems. Veterans with ghosts, women with bruises they hid under makeup, teenagers who'd aged out of love. He'd learned that homeless was not a single thing. It was 1,000 different collapses. And in every story, there was always someone in a uniform somewhere making a choice. He had not come to the gas station to test officers. He'd come because a low-level runner was supposed to meet him there with a flash drive and a name, a first crack in a trafficking ring that had been swallowing people like the river swallowed trash. The runner hadn't shown, but the officers had. And now the investigation had shifted, not away from the ring, but deeper into the system that allowed it to keep operating in daylight. A black SUV turned into the lot, followed by a second vehicle. They moved with quiet urgency, no sirens, no lights. A man in a dark coat stepped out first, then a woman with a badge clipped openly to her belt. 2 more followed, scanning. Ruiz's shoulders stiffened. That's federal." Macaulay's mouth went dry. The woman approached with brisk steps. "Agent," she said, nodding to the man with the cart. "You okay?" He nodded. "I'm fine." Her eyes flicked to the officers. "These the ones?" He didn't answer immediately. He looked at Ruiz. "Officer Ruiz," he said, and Ruiz flinched at the way his name sounded now, formal, recorded. "Do you know why you asked me for ID?" Ruiz stared, confused. Because procedure. The man nodded. No, because you were looking for a reason to justify what was already happening. Ruiz's eyes glistened, anger and shame fighting. I didn't. The man held up a hand. You don't have to explain yourself to me. You have to explain yourself to yourself. The woman federal agent stepped closer to Macaulay. Officer Macaulay, she said, reading his nameplate. I'm Special Agent Linton. We'll need your body cam footage and a statement. Macaulay tried to pull himself taller. We're not obligated to. A man behind Linton, older, with a calm face and a posture that suggested he didn't raise his voice because he never needed to, spoke quietly. You are. Macaulay's eyes flicked to him. Who are you? Assistant U.S. Attorney Farrow, the man said, showing a credential. We're here because your interaction with a federal agent in the field has become a matter of interest. Ruiz swallowed hard. His gaze darted to the patrol cars, to the store, to the woman still filming. The manager came out again, eyes wide. What's going on? He asked, voice thin. Agent Linton turned. Sir, we'll need access to your exterior camera footage. The manager nodded quickly. Yes, anything. Macaulay's voice cracked with indignation. This is insane. We were told there was. The undercover agent cut him off gently, almost kindly. A call, he said. You keep saying that like it absolves you. Macaulay's jaw clenched. You set me up. The agent's eyes didn't blink. No, you revealed yourself. The AUSA glanced at Ruiz. Officer Ruiz, you'll give a statement too. Ruiz nodded, voice barely there. Yes, sir. Macaulay glared at Ruiz. Don't. Ruiz looked back, and something in his expression hardened. Not against Macaulay as a person, but against the version of himself that had gone along with things because it was easier. I'm going to tell the truth, Ruiz said. Macaulay's face twisted. The truth? The truth is we deal with vagrants all day, and... He stopped again, swallowing the word he almost said. The undercover agent watched him. Say it, he said quietly. Say what you call them. Macaulay's lips pressed together. He looked away. The undercover agent nodded, as if that silence itself had been entered into evidence. Agent Linton spoke into her radio. We'll need local supervision here, and a unit to escort the officers back to the precinct for statements. No cuffs unless they escalate. Macaulay scoffed. Escort? Like I'm under arrest. The AUSA's tone was mild, which made it more frightening. Not yet. Macaulay went pale. Ruiz's hands trembled slightly at his sides. He stared at the undercover agent with a mixture of disbelief and something like awe. How long have you been out here? Ruiz asked, voice low. The man glanced at his card. Long enough. Ruiz hesitated. Do you really sleep outside? The man's gaze drifted past him, to the overpass, to the cold corners where shadows lived. Sometimes, he said. Sometimes I sleep in a motel with a different name. Sometimes I sleep in a car. Sometimes I sleep where they sleep, so they'll talk to me. Ruiz swallowed. Why? The man looked back at him. Because people won't tell the truth to someone they think will leave when it gets uncomfortable. Agent Linton stepped closer, lowering her voice. We located the runner, she said. He's at the clinic on 9th. Stab wound. He's alive. The undercover agent's eyes narrowed, focus snapping back to the original mission. Who did it? Unknown, Linton said. But he asked for you. He kept saying, tell the old man. The undercover agent's face tightened. Then we move. He turned to the officers one last time. This isn't just about me, he said, voice carrying enough that the woman filming could catch it. It's about the people you see every day and decide don't matter. It's about what you think you're allowed to do when you believe no one important is watching. Macaulay's voice came out hoarse. I didn't hurt you. The agent met his eyes. You tried, he said simply, and you would have if I'd been who you assumed. Macaulay stared, and for the first time he looked afraid. Not of the FBI, not of court. Afraid of the mirror the moment had held up. Ruiz spoke quietly. Sir, I'm sorry. The undercover agent watched him for a long beat. Then he nodded once. Make it mean something, he said. He turned away, pushing his cart toward the SUV. One of the federal agents reached to take the cart for him, then stopped, uncertain. The undercover agent shook his head. I got it, he said. He loaded the cart into the back of the SUV with practiced efficiency. The cart wasn't just a prop. It was a door into a world people ignored. It held notebooks under blankets, a recorder wrapped in socks, a laminated map marked with codes. It held a life he wore like camouflage. As he climbed into the SUV, he paused and looked back at the gas station one more time. The pumps, the cracked concrete, the store windows reflecting faces. The woman filming lowered her phone and called out, "Hey, what's your name?" The undercover agent considered for a second. His real name was one that lived on official documents, on a plaque in a federal building, on a birthday card his sister still sent even though he missed most holidays. But the name he'd used on the streets, the name people here knew, was different, softer, carrying less weight and more trust. He chose carefully. "You can call me Mr. Carter," he said. She nodded like she'd been given something important. Macaulay watched the SUV doors close, his face a storm of resentment and regret he didn't know how to name. Ruiz stood very still, watching the vehicle pull away, and something in his chest ached, the feeling of standing at the edge of a life where he could either keep moving with the current or finally swim. The federal vehicles rolled out of the lot, leaving the patrol cars behind like abandoned props. The wind kept snapping the banners. Inside, the manager exhaled as if he'd been holding his breath for years. He looked at the woman still standing by pump 2, then at the officers, then back at the empty space where the card had been. "What now?" he muttered. No one answered. Across the street, the bus stop sign stood crooked, paint chipped, advertising a route the city barely serviced. A bus rumbled in the distance, late as always. At the curb, Officer Macaulay stared at his own hands, as if trying to see what the cameras had seen. He could hear his own voice in his head. "You people always," cut off before the word could become permanent. He swallowed. Ruiz looked at him. "Brent," he said quietly. Macaulay didn't respond. Ruiz's eyes flicked to the woman with the phone, then to the manager, then to the street. "We need to call Sergeant," he said. Macaulay's laugh was bitter. "Call whoever you want." Ruiz took a breath and did it anyway. As the call connected, Ruiz's gaze drifted toward the horizon where the SUVs had disappeared. Somewhere out there, a wounded runner waited with a name. Somewhere out there, a ring of predators operated with confidence. Somewhere out there, a man in a thin coat carried both the weight of a badge and the weight of being seen as disposable. Ruiz realized, with a strange clarity, that the undercover agent hadn't been the one disguised. The disguise had been the city's, a mask of routine, of procedure, of just doing our job, covering the choices people made when they thought no one would hold them accountable. The bus finally arrived across the street, doors folding open with a sigh. A teenager stepped off, backpack bouncing, and glanced at the gas station with the wary eyes of someone who had learned early how to read danger. He didn't linger. He walked fast, and for the first time in a long time, someone in a uniform watched him go and wondered what it would take to make the world feel less like a threat to a kid just trying to get home. The wind calmed for a moment, and the banners settled, hanging still above the pumps like tired flags. Then the cold returned, the city moved on, and the cameras, some official, some in trembling hands, kept the day from disappearing the way days like this usually did. Not this time.